Welcome to the Overtime Show, Week 17 edition. I'm Mitchell Marshall here along with Jeremy Adley, and we're going to give you a quick look at what's going on in the NFL, what we're excited about before our playoff extravaganza next week. Jeremy, how are you doing? How was your weekend of football?
Yeah, I'm very good, Mitch. It was an interesting weekend of football. I thought I was going to have a heart attack watching the Seahawks. I didn't get that. It was actually rather plain sailing. So, yeah, no, I enjoyed it. My fantasy football also went rather well after starting out tragically. I have somehow gone to the playoffs with a losing record and gotten to the final. So I'm pretty good.
So let's talk about what we know for sure, and that is what is set in stone for the playoff picture for awards. What do you think that we know absolutely for sure going forward into the playoffs?
I mean, if you're looking at playoff picture wise, we also know set in stone now that the Chiefs are going to basically lock up the 1 seed and they're going to get that first round bye. I think it's really important this year, the team that does get the first round bye, more so than any other, as you know, we know that as one team from each conference is going to get the bye rather than two. It'll be interesting to see because usually the teams that do get the bye start pretty slowly. So if we're looking at playoffs, like I'm thinking first round teams to watch out for. If we're looking at the AFC, I'm thinking someone like the Buffalo Bills. I think they put on a real show last night against the New England Patriots. They've got the offense to match up with the Chiefs. They've got the defense, I think. I think it's been the most underrated part of their whole season so far. I think they've looked exceptionally efficient in the red zone as well. And when you add in the fact Josh Allen's got that leg factor, I think it's going to really cause teams problems in the playoffs. Other teams, look at the Steelers locked up the AFC North after having a bit of a wobble. I think 3 games in a row they lost, wasn't
it?
Yeah, and they've just locked that up now. If they get a ground game going, I think they'll be fine. It was a big win for them to come back against the Colts. The Colts, to me, are a legitimate playoff team. So to come back and beat them is a big statement win. So I'm looking at them. And we're swinging over towards the NFC. Packers are obviously in, basically have the 1 seed locked up. It's in their own destiny. Saints trying to chase that down, as are the Seahawks. It looks like the Packers are going to lock that up if they already haven't already. And the road to the Super Bowl could go through Lambeau. I'm not too sure how you feel about the Packers going into the playoffs of the 1 seed. I don't feel they're the best team in the NFC, but the record says they are.
They've just looked really bad a few times, honestly. So it is what it is. I don't know if it matters that much, but it is the only bye this year with the 7 playoff teams. And that's what kind of sucks this year is, so in the AFC, the Chiefs, the Bills, and the Steelers have clinched playoff spots. But then there are 5 teams with 10 wins in the AFC. So a 10-win team is not going to make the playoffs. Whereas in the NFC, we are just waiting to see if we could get our first ever 6-win division winner playoff team in Washington, who could be 6-9. And isn't there a team that has a tie where it would be something and 1? Anyway, it's kind of a shame, but I'm not one for just taking the best 12 teams in the end. It's an interesting look. So the Packers, Saints, Seahawks, and Buccaneers have it locked up, and then Washington football team should take the East, but the Cowboys and Giants both also have scenarios. So there is some stuff up for the final for grabs in the final week, but moving to awards, here's what I will say about the Packers. I think I was underestimating Aaron Rodgers' numbers, and it's funny that Joe couldn't be here this week because I'm about to tell you that I really think Aaron Rodgers should win the MVP over Patrick Mahomes, and I think that's what's going to happen. What do you think?
Yeah, I agree. I think after especially this weekend, Patrick Mahomes pretty much stunk it up against the Atlanta Falcons. They were not good. And then the Tennessee Titans, who are a legitimate playoff team going up to Lambeau. And, although it wasn't like the most passing yards ever, Aaron pretty much threw a party on them. So it was just, I think he's locked it up now. I think he's 44 touchdowns on the year. You think Pat Mahomes won it when he got, was it 50 touchdowns he got? He won the MVP. So, I think Rodgers pretty much locked it up. Unless the only way it can change around for me is if Rodgers stinks it up in the last week and Patrick Mahomes throws like 6-7 touchdowns. But I think Rodgers has got it. Well, I hope so.
I don't know. I honestly still think the overall picture, it would surprise me if Patrick Mahomes wins, just because he does so much incredible. He's so flashy, and he's still the sexy pick. He's still the crazy enough, with it being Aaron Rodgers, he's still the name right now. But the Chiefs have not looked that great the last few weeks. They haven't looked bad, but they could have dropped one to a mediocre team one of the last 2 or 3 weeks. So it's going to be interesting. Obviously, neither guy is going to be,
Do you want to hear an interesting stat with the Chiefs? They have the most one-score wins in NFL history for a 14-win team.
Most. Wow.
Yeah. And dude, that kind of reminds me of, do you remember the Oakland Raiders with Derek Carr when he had his MVP season? They won so many games by one score. I think they were a 10-win team that year, and everyone was like, oh, the Raiders are, they're okay, they're great.
Yeah.
I'm sitting there, I'm like, the Chiefs have so many one-score wins. I'm trying to figure out, are they just bored? Or, are they just like, can we hurry up and get to the playoffs? I can't work it out. Like Le'Veon Bell came in yesterday for them at running, and they can't run the ball. And it's, I thought maybe it's Edwards-Helaire. He's not a big running back. He's more of a finesse back. They bring in Le'Veon Bell. They can't do it. I don't know whether we're all just getting numbed by the Chiefs being brilliant, which is the same with Patrick Mahomes. Is the reason Rodgers get the MVP is we're all just like, all right, Patrick, you didn't throw for 300 yards. You had a pretty poor day, didn't you? It's yeah.
Well, with the Chiefs, I don't think very many of those games are in doubt. And, once in a while, a team will have a stinker where they're down 17 in the third and they kind of fade away. That rarely happens to them. But it's also, they've had a couple of electric games, but outside of that, they just kind of do it. And if you give Mahomes the ball back with the right amount of time, you just expect him to go down and win it. And he does. And sometimes it's not even that exciting. It's just to be expected. He's got so many weapons. So maybe they're being underrated, when it really comes down to it. Andy Reid does have a history of choking. And obviously last year, there was just no way it was going to happen. But with them looking this shaky, you've got to look into the playoffs and think they're not dominating. I wouldn't be surprised if a team comes in and has a really solid performance against them. And frankly, I would love a Bills Saints Super Bowl. That is my thought right now.
I love the Bills just because I love the Bills Mafia. So I genuinely would love just to see the Bills get in. But they've got 12 wins. I don't think they're the wild card team you watch for in the playoffs. I think the team you watch out for in the playoffs, if we're talking AFC, is the Baltimore Ravens. At 10-5, everyone's kind of just forgot about the Ravens a little bit. It's been more about how bad the Steelers are. Chiefs looking meh. Bills are unreal. And then you look at the Ravens in at number 6. Do you want to play the Ravens in the playoffs? I don't. If I was in the AFC, I would not want to play the Baltimore Ravens. They are, to me, the most dangerous team that is sitting in the wild card.
Yeah, when it comes to the AFC, look, I'm not scared of the Dolphins. They're flip-flopping between two insanely different quarterbacks. They're just not dependable. The Titans, if they can really put a game together, they have it winnable. The Browns, I don't trust at all. And the Colts, they have some really great, solid stuff. They're a good football team, but I don't see them upsetting the Bills or the Chiefs. And Phillip Rivers will screw it up, and I will laugh in his face. I really don't.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think the real dangerous team, if you had to pick any team out of all of the wild card potential, it'd be the Ravens. The Dolphins have limitations, the Browns have severe limitations, the Titans are centered around the run game. The Ravens, I know the Ravens are also centered around the run game, but I just feel like they can win multiple ways.
It's a more dynamic run game than Tennessee.
Yeah.
But maybe Tannehill will go on another run just because they have that run game. Yes, teams can focus on it and force the throw, but overall it is such a good run game, and that's underrated sometimes right before the playoffs.
Well, so just to finish off our playoff thing, any of the NFC teams you think could cause problems? Washington, the Rams, Bears, Cardinals, Cowboys, Giants? Anyone there you wouldn't want to face? To me, no. To me, all of them are just no.
No, honestly, which is so sad right now. The Cardinals, which currently sit in 8th, are the team that I would think could put together an electric performance. The teams in the East, not worried about any of them. And that's not to say Washington doesn't have a good defense, but they don't have a good offense. The Rams are just, what an ugly 9-6 season. I really think that we're looking at sorry, bro. We're looking at the Packers or Saints, I think. And then The Buccaneers, man, sometimes they look incredible, but I'm just not convinced. You know, we're getting a Jekyll and Hyde Tom Brady right now. If he had to go to Lambeau, I wouldn't be worried about it. I know he played in Foxborough for years and in the cold, but I just don't see him doing that on the road in Green Bay.
Yeah, as much as I want to say I see us as a real Super Bowl contender, I have the Packers, Saints, Chiefs, Bills as the top four. I just think we lack something. I can't put my finger on it because the numbers since we've got Carlos Dunlap and Jamal Adams have come back have been brilliant, but I can't put my finger on it. We just don't look fluid. Like it just feels a little bit. We're going to get three drives a game where we're going to score. It just feels a little bit. I don't know. I feel like we're missing something. I can't put my finger on it. I really can't.
The Seahawks could win a big game. Like they have a great quarterback, and that can always turn it on. But the NFC also has Aaron Rodgers, Drew Brees, Tom Brady. So it's not like, and again, going back to the Cardinals, like they have an offense that can be explosive. So it's just, but if they were going up against anyone else, look, the Seahawks could turn in a win or two. I don't see it going all the way to the Super Bowl, but I've been wrong before, twice
Yeah,
ever.
I would say this: if we had to play the Packers, I wouldn't be scared because I think we could punch the Packers in the mouth enough that they would just fold. The Saints, I'm worried about Kamara because I trust our defense to get to the quarterback, but it's just Drew Brees having had a bit of time off. I know it was a rib injury, bit of time off. I don't want to play Drew Brees down in New Orleans, and the Buccaneers are. Yeah, it really just depends what Buccaneers team turns up. They are so different week to week. It is unbelievable.
There's definitely not an NFC team that I truly trust. Like the Packers have had some stinkers. The Saints, sometimes they just don't have it. But you're right. Breeze in the end is smart. He comes through, and if he gets run support, it's dangerous.
Yeah, like
go ahead.
Yeah, no, I'm just gonna say like Drew Brees is not gonna turn the football over. Like he's not. Yeah. So when you play the Saints, the only way you're going to get extra possessions is 3 and outs. So that's my worry. I think when it comes to my team, my worry is we can get guys off the field, but it's after it's a 5-minute drive and it ends in a field goal. We can't get teams off the field within 2 minutes and them coming back on it. So if I was to say something about the Saints, it's going to be hard to get the ball off them. I just don't know how teams get the ball off him because he's not going to turn it over.
Yeah, that's what's funny. I think the other day he did have no touchdown passes and 2 picks, but it's because he had 7 touchdowns coming for 6 from Kamara, of course, and 1 from Taysom Hill. So I'm looking forward to the playoffs. Like when someone was saying, I was listening to some guys talk about the Colts and how they could be fun to watch in the playoffs. I was like, you know what? You're kind of right. Like sometimes there's just a dud of a playoff game, like the Texans and Jaguars playing that first Saturday night game. I think we're going to have a lot of fun playoff games. And when I don't have a rooting interest, I can usually make one up. Like I don't want Tom Brady to win, so I'll root against him. But I would rather a game come down to the final minutes and be objectively exciting. With that in mind,
I'm looking forward to the Browns.
I'm
looking forward to this.
They're the Wild West. So what is your... I watched Red Zone and then I watched the Broncos game. I feel like I caught a lot of Monday Night Football on social media, but nothing popped out in my mind. So I'm curious for you, what was the best game of this week?
This is really strange because I don't feel that any game like you was unbelievable. Like all the games across, like obviously I don't have much access to watch all the games. I watched a lot of the highlights. It was actually like the sort of more like teams you don't really care about had great games. Like Cincinnati, Houston was a fun game to watch, 37-31 to the Bengals. Like you would look at that game and go, well, Deshaun Watson's going to win it. And it was fun to watch because there's just that many mistakes. Suppose best game, I actually do it. I've got it. Miami, Las Vegas, just for that little bit of Fitz magic with 18 seconds left. How on earth he makes that throw? I have not gotten that. Well, he makes it through because the guy pulls on his face mask. Like after the game, he said if I can't remember who it was who pulled his face mask, but if he hadn't done it, he would have completely overshot him. So he was like, yeah, thanks for the face mask pull, because it actually took him a little bit off the throw. But in terms of excitement, yeah, I'm going to go Miami with Las Vegas. That for me was the most enjoyable final couple of minutes I've seen in a long time.
It's just what happens to Fitzmagic. I think they should just go into their next game and say, look, Tua's going to play the first half. Fitz is going to play the second half. We'll bring in Tua for like one play just to confuse the heck out of him. Oh, what a mess.
But
I love, go ahead.
yeah, sorry, just for Miami, obviously I come from a sporting background where we replace players like quite easily and there's not really much of a controversy. So I kind of don't, I understand like in American sports, the quarterback usually never changes ever. But I hate this notion of if your quarterback's not playing well, you can't yank him. Like, if Tua's not playing well, what? Can I not bring Fitzmagic into the game? Like, if my defensive end's not playing well, I'll take him out and put another one in. So it just, all this whole chat about Tua and Fitzpatrick, who should start, who shouldn't. I like how Brian Flores comes out and says, nope, it's Tua Tagovailoa. He's the quarterback. He's my number one guy. Ryan Fitzpatrick's there in case he doesn't play well. And if he doesn't play well, he comes in and it's fine. Like, it's but the only reason people get torn up on it is because Fitzpatrick comes in after Tua stinks it up. So I get it.
I mean, everyone's concern is about the yo-yo effect on a young quarterback to keep getting pulled or to think if he doesn't have it, why is he still out there? Like, I do understand the quarterback, everything has to be so honed in for that guy that to switch back and forth, because a lot of college football teams will play two quarterbacks or, go back and forth pretty easily, pretty regularly. And if you're Ohio State, somehow it just works. But in the NFL, I get why there's a trepidation, but it seems like Tua's handling it really well. And yeah, I really like Brian Flores. I like the future of the NFC East the AFC East and not having anything to do with Bill Belichick.
Yeah, I agree.
Jump over to fantasy. So I did not play fantasy this year, partially because I was moving to the UK and it was busy. It was Corona and it's nice to get a breather. I think I'm going to start playing every other year. It's just a little less stress off. I still enjoy the game without it. But I'm always curious about it. Obviously this week with Kamara, I was like, oh, that's such a great fantasy story. I'm curious how your fantasy season's going and what have been the highlights for you?
Yeah, my fantasy season's great. I'm in the final, the winners final, not the losers. So I'm losing 1-3-1 to 1-3-5 going into the second round. So it is really tight. I take a lot of pride in the fact I drafted Stephon Diggs. I can't remember where I took him. It was really low down. It was, I think I got him like 80th or something. And I was sitting there, I was like, why is Stephon Diggs sitting there like wide open? So he was a nice pickup this year. I think last night he had something like 38 points, 41 and a half points. Like that is, this is ridiculous. Travis Kelce did well for me as well. The big bust of the year, Michael Thomas. I took him with my first Vern selection, and he has got me a grand total of less than 50 points. So
wow. Well, him and Christian McCaffrey, really been a bummer for fantasy owners.
Yeah, in terms of fantasy guys, if someone's looking for players to plug in for next week, one of the guys I'd be taking, if he is on your free agency, is CeeDee Lamb from the Dallas Cowboys. Him and the Cowboys are really heating up. So against the 49ers, 19.5 points. Against the Eagles, 23.5 points. He has posted games of 15 or more on 7 occasions this season. 8 occasions, actually. 8. So CeeDee Lamb, if you're looking into somebody, if you've got like a wide receiver who's not producing for me, it's T.Y. Hilton. He's going out. CeeDee Lamb's going in. He's someone I'd definitely be looking at. Or Corey Davis. The Titans are on the road at Houston to try and wrap up the division. Another player you'd be looking at, as well as Nelson Aguilar. He's been really quiet on the fantasy front this season.
That's the thing. This week, normally I don't like having fantasy competition in week 17 because you'd never know who's actually going to be playing and putting in effort. But a lot of stakes, like when you said you weren't going to play TY, I was just like, well, that's a really big game for him. Like for that team. So he, it could be prominent, but you're right. It's huge for the Cowboys as well. And Andy Dalton, like people forget Andy Dalton's fine. Like that's all you can really say about him is he was just fine. He was not a disaster. And he seems to be kind of hitting a little bit of a stride. So my other thing with CeeDee Lamb is that's who I wanted the Broncos to pick, and they picked Jerry Jeudy. And look, Jerry Jeudy is going to be fine. I am not in panic mode about Jerry Jeudy, and he's getting the ball from Drew Lock, who's been struggling, but man, did he look terrible yesterday, and he was open, and I'm very frustrated. So whoever said CeeDee Lamb over Jerry Jeudy, I agree with you, but hopefully in 5 years, I'm a lot happier with that pick.
Yeah. It's just if you're looking in terms of like other guys you're looking at, what possible guys you could maybe trade for. Robbie Anderson, I took him because he was one of the guys left. Like I'll admit this, I did not plan for this guy to be good, but he has had a very good fantasy season. He's averaging around 15, 16 points per game week. It doesn't seem to matter, even though the Carolina Panthers are one of the worst teams in the league. He's having an exceptional season. And James Conner is back off IR, and he had 17 points last week. I had him on my bench because I didn't think he would play that much. I went with Singletary and Le'Veon Bell, and that did not work out well. So, in terms of other fantasy news for some of you guys, Michael Thomas is definitely out. Jared Goff is likely going to be out with a broken thumb, and Ronald Jones Jr. is also likely still be out. So there's some big guys in fantasy who, if you have fantasy football teams, get that changed because these guys are probably not coming back, especially with playoffs around the corner.
It's a fun one as gambling is becoming more legal in the States, and obviously gambling much bigger over here on sports. Like fantasy is just about the perfect medium for me of like skill meets opportunity for me to, play daily fantasy football or to put together a team. And it does add another dimension, especially when you're watching Red Zone and stuff. So I kind of miss it, but that's what happens is I miss it. And then next year, week 3, I'm going to be pissed off about something. Anyway, let's move on to Trevor Lawrence should be a Jag. I feel like it's 99% sure. The other percentages are he gets a massive injury. They somehow love another quarterback, or they get just someone gives them the absolute world. But I give that less than a 1% chance. I think he's going to be there. I think that is not a horrible organization. It's better than the Jets, I think, to end up at. And the other question is now how many teams in that top 10 will pick quarterbacks? There could be 6 quarterbacks going in this first round. I think we know of 5 for sure. But overall, Trevor, I hope you enjoy Jacksonville. Not that far from Clemson, really. What do you think? What do you think about that being the landing spot and how that's going to look for Jacksonville?
I think this is a really big challenge for Jacksonville to build a franchise that will contend for 15 years. Because here's my theory. I think they'll get rid of Doug Marrone at the end of the year. Agree? He probably goes.
If they want to just say we're going to start anew because they're going to have a new GM, then yes, but I don't see it as a sure thing. But go on.
I think he goes. I think the bigger question is can you get the Clemson double package? Can you somehow convince Dabo Swinney to come to the NFL with Trevor Lawrence at Jacksonville? And I think because Jacksonville now has Trevor Lawrence, like you basically put it at 99.9% chance, like he is definitely going to be a Jag. I think this is a real chance for the Jaguars to go out and get a really good coach. He's shown he can beat the biggest teams in the playoffs. It's not just a case of a big fish in a small pond. I think with Trevor Lawrence going to the Jags, they've got to make a push now to try and get Dabo Swinney out of Clemson. I think they have a chance to get a top quality coach and quarterback combination for years to come.
No one's ever done it where they do that straight up. They really get the number one best quarterback. It's funny because obviously Jim Harbaugh coached Andrew Luck and stuff, and that kind of could have sunk up. It didn't. Harbaugh, of course, so much success until he got to Michigan. Like even in the NFL, he was so good. I don't know if Dabo wants that. He seems to be such a college type of guy. He's very Southern. He's old fashioned. He's frankly said things that I think when it comes to player empowerment, I don't know if he's spoken out against kneeling, but he has certainly been against players getting paid. I do concern that he would clash where in college he is the adult, and when it comes to the NFL, managing egos is a whole different ball game. But a lot of college coaches try. Obviously, Pete Carroll was successful. Harbaugh, in my opinion, was successful. Nick Saban was not successful, really. So I'm very curious. Obviously, Urban Meyer is another name. I don't know about the Jags specifically, but getting heavily tossed around to see if he'll give a shot to the NFL. So I do want to see a quarterback coach pairing come straight into the league together. I think that's a fascinating dynamic, but I think it's a story better than the perfect idea.
Yeah. It's just with if everyone is saying Trevor Lawrence is this once a generation quarterback, I feel like going around the Dabo Swinney, if you're you've done everything you can at Clemson, just come to the NFL. Like if it doesn't work, there'll be a really good job for you in college football anyway. And like if you have a really good quarterback in Trevor Lawrence anyway, like it's probably going to work out for you. So at least give it a go. I'd love to see it. I really would love to see it.
It was funny. I could see him doing it, and then Clemson, if he just lasts like 2 years, and they're like, "Yeah, you can come right back." Because the other thing is, he's obviously great at recruiting, which is a big thing about college. The thing, coaching in college, the X's and O's can be similar if you make them, but recruiting and handling turnover are really special abilities that are becoming more relevant in the NFL. I think less guys, not NBA level, but are really sticking around with one team for long periods of time. So it could be valuable. I'm excited to see it. I'm going to try and do a lot more draft homework this year so that come April, we can really give an extravaganza of looks beyond this. But I think this week with the Jets playing well in some manner of that word, we know exactly what's going to happen with at least pick number 1 in our draft. That is hopefully in the fountains of the Bellagio in Las Vegas and not over Zoom. But we don't know if that's going to be possible yet.
I mean, just with Trevor now being a Jag, what do you think the Jets do? This is really interesting now because we've seen with Ohio State quarterbacks recently, they don't seem to translate into good NFL quarterbacks.
I don't see why people are that excited about Fields. And I went to BYU. I enjoy watching Wilson. I'm not as high on him as everybody else. But Trey Lance, is that his name? Lance?
Yeah, Trey Lance. Yeah, Trey Lance.
He's more of a Josh Allen, not style, but a little bit more of a raw. I think anytime you take a guy from a smaller school, and obviously Allen played at, we're talking more of a Wentz comparison. Allen played at Wyoming, but either way, he was considered raw. This guy's a little bit raw and coming from that type of program, but people just really see him as the prototype of a quarterback. But I'm the guy who saw Brock Osweiler and Paxton Lynch just crash and burn, and I could kind of see that happening. So to me, I'm not excited enough about a quarterback to take after Trevor Lawrence, but I think Darnold and Gase both have to go. I think both of them could have futures in the NFL, maybe not as a head coach for Gase, but I think they need fresh starts apart from each other and apart from New York. So they have to revamp. And so you'd think unless they get Matt Stafford or something, they almost have to go quarterback, and it's probably going to be Fields. I think there's a 20% chance if they go quarterback, it's Wilson. Oh man, I don't know. Look, New York has a lot of great things, so I never feel bad for the Knicks or the Jets, but it's dire times, and I do want Darnold to get a second chance somewhere.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just looking at the draft order. Basically, after the Jets, if things stand the way they are, the first team that could potentially draft a quarterback is Carolina at 9. I don't think they will because they got Teddy Bridgewater. And you think he's there on a 3-year deal. So basically, you've got the next 3 years worth of quarterbacks to potentially pick from. So they're really in no rush. Denver, obviously, your team, I'm convinced will take a quarterback because Drew Lock just does not look good.
I hope so.
At all. Yeah, I mean, you could end up with a Matt Stafford. So I think either Detroit or Denver probably is going to take quarterback. Dallas won't. Chargers won't. Minnesota won't. Guess who's at 14?
Who?
Guess who's at 14?
Oh, I don't know.
New England. So if you're thinking potentially of Zach Wilson dropping to 14, and if there's one team who he could end up going to and actually looking good on, it's the Patriots.
Here's what I like about that. I think that is a good winning organization where, at my pride as a college football fan, I am pretty solid that is going to give Zach Wilson the best chance to succeed because I'm not as high as on him as most people. On the other hand, I hate the Patriots. That is rough. But if I'm a quarterback, that's where I want to go. If I fall out of that top 5, because I would not be shocked if shifts happen and 3 guys go in the top 5. If I fall below that, I'm okay with falling to a better organization lower in that draft. You're in the first round. You're in the first round. Who cares otherwise? Whatever.
Yeah, and let's be honest, the Patriots as well, Bill Belichick, they never do what seems the most conventional thing to do. Mm-hmm. So you never know; they might trade to get someone like a Matt Stafford.
And they've
Bill Belichick, he always goes with proven commodities. He never really goes with young players.
he hasn't
So
been a great drafter. And that's the interesting thing is
no,
that also I criticize Elway for drafting, being a great quarterback and not drafting good quarterbacks. Belichick had Brady. No matter who you think was carrying that franchise, they're clearly both very good at their jobs. He has never had to take a swing on a first-round quarterback. Brady was in the sixth. They had Bledsoe before he showed up. Bledsoe was obviously still playing very successful when Belichick got there. So he's never had to take that swing. I don't think at this point that guy has nothing to lose, but we'll see. I'm excited to dig into those quarterbacks. I need to watch Trey Lance more, so I stop talking out of my butt. But I'm just less excited about Fields and Wilson than a lot of other people are.
I am. I'm not excited about Justin Fields. I think he's overhyped. There's not enough tape on him as well, with it being a shortened season. It's say what you want of the something like Oklahoma, like their division. I can't remember what it's called. It's not the Big Ten. The
Big 12.
Big 12, yeah. Like, the Big 12 has like no defenses and they're all per teams. The Big Ten is not exactly stacked with great teams. So
no, not right now. It's usually the better conference, but it doesn't matter. Ohio State has made the final before with their third string quarterback. Somehow they just know how to design and get great athletes in there and win, and it has not translated great to the NFL. So, but I mean, it's a wait and see. It's just that we know the first domino has very likely fallen.
Yeah.
My last thought as we wind down here is that if the Broncos lose, they might move up 1 or 2 spots in the draft. And I don't know how much that matters. I don't know what they are going to draft. I think we have a lot of the pieces that we need on both sides of the ball. If we're healthy, we obviously need corners and we need an offensive lineman and probably a quarterback. Those are the 3 positions I'm targeting. But I wanted to be like, oh, well, they can lose, but they purposely make the last game of the season a division game. And I cannot, in good faith, I would never root against the Broncos, but to be like, if we lose, we lose. And if we lose, it's not the end of the world. But I just don't want to see that smirk on John Gruden's face. Derek Carr, he's like supposed to be like one of the kindest people you ever meet, but to me, he looks like Sid from Toy Story. Like he looks like that douchebag down the street that you sort of wanted to punch in the face. He's a little smart ass. It is easy for me to hate the Raiders. I cannot in good conscience want the Broncos to lose to them. So I don't know if I could be dooming our franchise by saying, let's win this game. And then we miss out 1 spot and not get a quarterback or something. But I just can't do it. And that's just a conundrum that I have to express once in a while. And it doesn't, they said they're going to keep Vic Fangio. I hope they don't keep Elway, but I'm sure they will. And then Drew Lock, it's kind of up in the air. It's like, do you invest more time or is he going to go the route of Mitch Trubisky where Chicago is just wasting all of their time? I don't want Stafford, but I wouldn't hate it. That could work, but it would be a stopgap. We would have to have all the other pieces around him be really, really good. So anyway, I'm frustrated, but I'm done and I still love my team. I'm a very loyal human being. Did you have any closing thoughts, Jeremy?
Yeah, just on your Denver team, when you're saying like potentially move off Drew Lock, I'm kind of like, if you get Matt Stafford, does that make you more of a contender? Like, really? Like, does it really push you up that much? Like, I would only change off Drew Lock realistically if someone said, oh, if you draft this guy or get this guy in, he will boost your team. I think Denver boost your team into like playoff contention, Super Bowl contention in a couple of years, whatever the window will be. But yeah, I mean, closing thoughts. There's quite a few actually. I've had to pick one.
Well, we got 2 minutes, so you got to pick one.
Okay, I'll pick one. I'll go with it. The Philadelphia Eagles should trade Carson Wentz in the offseason because Jalen Hurts looks absolutely outstanding. That is all I can say on that. He just looks.
You're getting overexcited. He's going to come back down to earth. It's a small sample size. Teams haven't been ready to prepare for him.
Come on, you have to admit though, the change.
He's going to be fine. I just wouldn't be that excited, but I would be excited enough to get rid of Wentz. That's the other theory. Some people think bring in Wentz, bring in Darnold, bring in Stafford, and have them compete with Locke. Everyone says Locke's a great competitor. See if that brings out the best in him, but there's just no such thing as a sure thing. Unless you can get Peyton Manning in free agency, and it can only happen once.
Oh, true. Very true.
All right. Well, thanks for joining me, Jeremy. We're going to have a supersized episode next week as we take a look back and forward into the playoffs. We'll have Joe back with us. It'll be a ton of fun. Thanks so much for joining us on the Overtime Show presented by our imaginary sponsor. Let's get ready for the last regular season week of football.
Yeah, boys, let's do it.